everyone, Sarah here. So this month on the podcast, we're focusing on small businesses. And we've got some great interviews all this month with small companies in the sewing industry. But while we're putting that together, Haley and I decided that we should have a conversation about what it's like at our company, at Seamwork. And we don't talk about that a lot, about life inside Seamwork, but I think maybe we should. So if you like hearing about this stuff, leave a comment and let us know. We talked a lot in this episode about our values as a company and how that plays out in our day-to-day. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's mini episode of Seamwork Radio. So today we're going to do something that's a little bit different. All this month we've been talking about small businesses. And today we wanted to take a moment and talk about Seamwork and what our business is all about. So we're going to talk about that today. And I thought I'd start by asking you, Haley, what's the worst job that you've ever had?
I think that would probably be a job that I had in ready to wear with a fashion designer that will remain unnamed. But it was just like, I think kind of like the bad experience that people imagine in their head when they think about horrible, like ready to wear jobs. Like we weren't allowed to eat in the building. Or in our suite. So we had to go eat in this really disgusting stairwell while people walk past us. They didn't pay for parking. So I had to park really far away in this really sketchy area. And it was just literally everything about it was bad. The guy who owned the company or the designer, he had a drug problem, and he would come in, he would be gone all day. He'd come in at the end of the day and right before all of the shops are about to close and send you on this wild goose chase to find pink sequined swatches. Go get 50 swatches for me. And you'd just be sprinting around downtown LA in the garment district trying to get all of these swatches for him.
Because he
hunt. Just woke up from partying all night and had an idea for a pink sequin dress. So it was a horrible job, but it's the job that led me to pivot to what I do today. So in that sense, I'm really grateful for it. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like you learn something from every job, good or bad, sometimes more from the bad ones.
Uh-huh.
I think I've been pretty lucky because I haven't had any really, really terrible jobs, but I'd say the job that I disliked the most was probably working retail. I did not like working retail. So I worked in an Apple store right after college. And I was kind of between college and grad school and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And it was Apple's a great company to work for. There's no problem with the store itself, but the people that would come in and dealing with the public around technology and computers was really, really challenging. And maybe not even for the reasons you think. It's not, sometimes there would be an older person who would come in and wouldn't know how to use a mouse or, things like that. And that is not a problem. It was more the people who would come in and would just think they know everything and be really unreasonably angry and entitled about things. I don't know. Technology brings that out in some people. I don't know why, but also a lot of celebrities, a lot of really entitled, because this was in Los Angeles, a lot of really entitled celebrities, some cool ones, but Willie Nelson was really cool. But other people,
imagine so.
Other people that I won't name were not cool. And there was one incident where this woman, I'm not going to name her name, but you could probably figure out who she is, but she was in a lot of hair metal videos in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And she went on some kind of wild, crazy spending spree. She took her husband's credit card. I think she hit him and then left and then took his credit card and went on this huge spending spree and ended up at the Apple store. On the floor with all of this computer stuff around her that she just bought. Like, I don't know what she was on, but it was a crazy experience. But just like, I don't know, there was a lot of wild Los Angeles celebrity experiences. So, but mostly it was just dealing with the public and the like insane people that would come in and act wild.
I remember you and I have both lived in Los Angeles, and when I moved from LA to Portland, everyone's like, the Portland thing is like, oh, keep Portland weird. Oh, Portland's so weird. I'm like, it's not that weird. not that weird. It's like basic city weird.
Yeah.
What you come to expect when you live in a city.
Mm-hmm. It's not Bizarro World, like people are on another planet.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of weird. Yeah. Yeah, so that's both of our Los Angeles work experiences. So I think that's pretty different from what we've got now. How would you describe our company? How would you describe working at Seamwork?
Well, I mean, I've been here for, is it 6 years now? Wow. It was a real culture shock when I first started working here. I remember my onboarding experience and getting this packet that was so nice and I don't know. It's been a very warm experience, and I feel like everybody is so happy to be here, and the culture is unlike anything I've experienced before, really collaborative and just creative. And I just love how passionate everyone is about what we do. It really even on crappy days, which there's crappy days in every single job, there's still it's still an exciting place to work. It's just it's really awesome. I'm excited to share a little bit more because I think that, it's something we don't talk about that much. And I know that everyone that I work with loves working at Seamwork.
Oh, that's good to hear. The thing I always remember that you started at this time of year because whenever somebody new starts, we send out this little questionnaire to ask a little bit about them. Uh-huh. And one of the things on there was what your favorite flower was. And you said peonies. And I was so happy because I had peonies growing in my yard and they had just bloomed at that time. So I could have them on your desk on your first day. Yeah. So every time the peonies start blooming in my yard, I think about that.
Aw, that's so sweet. Yeah. At Seamwork, you fill out a questionnaire when you start, and it's what are your favorite snacks? What's your, all of these nice little questions. It made me feel oh, wow, people are interested in me, as a person and not just my skills. It's nice when people are interested in both. Yeah.
Yeah, really, it's just a sneaky way for me to figure out what to get you for gifts later on. So I highly recommend that. If you could do that for your friends and family, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Or stalk their Pinterest. That's another gift giving tip I've learned from Sari.
So I thought today, we were talking about the culture of Seamwork, and I think what I would like to do is just kind of talk about where that comes from and the philosophy behind it. So, it's evolved over time, and I think it's really evolved a lot in the last couple of years, especially because I've thought a lot more intentionally about it. And I've always tried to, create a healthy culture, but I think I've put even more thought and effort into that lately. So the way I've been thinking about it, especially in the last year, and I really adopted this from one of my favorite people in business world, business writing, is Ari Weinzweig, and he is the founder of Zingerman's, which is a community of businesses in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the most famous of which is Zingerman's Deli. And he has a really interesting approach to running business, and he writes a lot about it. He's got some great books, which I can put in the show notes. But I went to a talk of his, and he was talking about the organization as an ecosystem. And that really, really resonated with me, that metaphor. And I think metaphors and the way we talk about things is just extremely important. And I think the metaphor of the garden and the ecosystem for a company, as opposed to thinking about a company as a machine with inputs and outputs and something that can be optimized and eventually get into some state of perfection where everything is running smoothly and perfectly. I don't think that ever really happens. I think it's much more like a living, breathing ecosystem where things are constantly changing. You have things outside of your control that you have to go with the flow and figure out. You have to adapt yourself. There's just like a million ways that it applies, I think, to business. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is explore that metaphor a little bit more. And then as we kind of talk about that, how that plays out at Seamwork. So the first part of that is thinking about the purpose of the company. And in the metaphor of the garden, that would be like the sun, because it's something that powers everything we do, and everything kind of reaches towards it as it grows. So for Seamwork, our purpose is spreading creativity. That's really what we're all about. And I think you can tell me what you think, Haley, but I think that really is the biggest driver for people, is what motivates a lot of people on our team, is thinking about how we're empowering other people to be creative. Don't you think?
Yeah, I like how our purpose is really like, it works internally as well as it works externally. And ultimately, it's like a big personal motivator for all of the individuals who work here. And that's because that was created really intentionally. Is because if we all have like kind of organically this common purpose, everything just runs so much smoother, and we're able to make decisions based on what our purpose is as a company. And just this really great keystone to return back to.
Yeah. And we do a lot to come back to it. Every week in our weekly meetings, we come back to it. We talk about it all the time. So I think that repetition, I guess, that sort of reminder, the constant reminders are really, really helpful, because I think in your life too, just reminding yourself why you're doing things is really important and helps to keep you going. So that's one thing. I think one important part of that is we always share what other people are making. Like in our meetings, we have a part of our weekly meeting where we look at all the things that people have been making with our patterns, and not all of them, obviously. that would take a long time, but we look at a selection of them, and it's so fun. It's so motivating and cool to see how people are using the stuff that we're putting out there.
Yeah, it's one of the first things that we do on Monday mornings as a team, and it really sets the tone. And brings it like, we also go over numbers and do all of that kind of stuff, but it like brings us back to that purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. And that's really like seeing all of your guys' smiling faces and looking so proud and awesome, and your me-mates.
Yeah. And right now we're working, since we're all working from home and our office is empty, I'm working on a renovation project for it. So we're going to be kind of redecorating it while it's empty. And one of the things I've been really thinking about is how we can bring that to life in our physical space and make sure that we have lots of pictures of Seamworkers everywhere. So I just find it really inspiring. And I think I've heard from the rest of the team that they do too. So I think it'll be really fun to have that as part of our new space.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited about it.
So that's the purpose part of it. And then the next part I wanted to talk about, which are, what's growing in this garden? What are we actually trying to create here? And, there are things we're trying to create, products and, patterns, our classes, all of that stuff. But I think the things we're really trying to grow are the impacts that we're having on everyone around us. And that's really what's important. And so this is something I've come to in the last couple of years. And one of the things that inspired me is a book called Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey, and he's the founder of Whole Foods. I don't totally agree with everything that he he believes. But I think this idea of conscious capitalism, which is that you have to consider all of the stakeholders in your business, all of the people who your business affects, and not just the shareholders. In a large business, it would be shareholders, has really had a profound impact on me. And so we came up with these 4 commitments, these areas that we're committed to, and that's our team, our members, our communities, and our planet. So we really try to make sure that our business is oriented towards having a positive impact on all those areas. And that's really what we're producing in the business, is positive impact. So I really like that idea because a lot of businesses, I think of positive impact on their community or whatever as donating money. And yeah, that's great. I think we do some of that, and I think it's wonderful. But it's also about, how can you address problems through the business? How can you address things like wealth inequality and other problems that are, really big problems in our society through this small unit of in our case, small unit of the business. So I've found that really, really inspiring. And I love the idea of, thinking about all of these things at once. How are we impacting our team members? How are we impacting the people who use Seamwork? How are we impacting people in our local community or our global community? And, what are we doing to make sure that our business is ecologically sustainable? We're not creating more waste. So I think, I don't know, I found that really inspiring.
Yeah. It's really, all of those components are really taken into consideration in a lot of our decisions. And in addition to that, this year we have something at Seamwork internally called Culture Club. Yes, like the band featuring Boy George. I told Sari at some point, I'll lead Culture Club if I can call it Culture Club. She laughed and said yes. Anyway, it used to just be kind of like a committee that planned like some fun little crafting afternoons a couple times a year for the team. And this last year we revamped it, and we have a chairperson for each one of these commitments, and they've taken on a project to impact that commitment. So I'm this year our team commitment chair, and I've been working on like a learning program with our team and getting that up and running. And it's been like a really cool, fun project for everyone to participate in. And I think this is like a theme with Seamwork, is that all of these commitments, this purpose, all of this stuff is like high level things in the decision-making part of the company, but also it's something that everyone, no matter what position you hold in the company, gets to participate in. And I think that that's really, really cool.
Yeah. I think another thing, I'm glad you mentioned Culture Club, because I think another important thing is not just talking about these things, but actually putting some systems into place. So Culture Club is part of that. Haley mentioned the learning program. So what we did this year is we set some really concrete goals for each of these areas and assigned somebody to be in charge of those goals. And we even created our first impact report, which I can talk about a little bit later maybe, that lays out, what did we do in the last year and what are we going to aim for in the next year, so that we have some accountability. And you can find that impact report, and it's our first one, so it's a little bit small, but hopefully it'll grow. But you can find that on our website, and I'll put that in the show notes too. So we talked about our purpose and our commitments, and we've talked a lot about culture generally. And in this metaphor of the garden, I think of culture as the soil. It's what everything grows in. It's what everything comes out of. So you described our culture as, I think you said, warm and collaborative, which I would agree with. Is there anything else that you think is like different about our culture compared to other places that you've worked?
I think this kind of is an extension of the collaborative nature of our culture, but I think that our culture is really generous. I think that all of our teammates are really generous with their time and their ideas and knowledge, and within the company and also outside of the company. I think that's like a value that we really take super seriously. What about you?
Yeah, I think generosity is a big part of what we do. I think compassion is also a big part of it. That's actually leads me to my next the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is our core values. And I think that's really what those are, like the roots of what we're growing. You know, everything comes from the culture, which is the soil, but the roots that bring everything to the surface are really the values. And our values at Seamwork we have 3 core values that we talk about, and they're framed as little phrases so that, you know, they're easy to remember and kind of pepper into what we're doing. The first one is grow from this, which just means that no matter what experience you're having, you know, you can grow in some way from it, whether it's a positive experience or it's a bad experience. And I think this applies to sewing also. There's nothing that you're going to experience that can't provide some kind of opportunity for you to grow in some way. And that requires some humility and some, you know, certain amount of ability to take things in stride, I guess. But growth is really, really important, and learning is really, really important to us. And then the next one is know us and them. So I really believe that, you know, it's important to remember our fundamental humanity in all the things that we do. And that comes back to that, that compassion piece of it. So I think this idea of, you know, being able to see beyond differences, to acknowledge differences, know that they're there and that they're good, but also see that there's a common humanity amongst all of us is really important. And I think that's what compassion is really, really all about. And then the last core value is practice creativity. And what that means to me is an acknowledgement that creativity isn't just something that you have or you don't have. It's not a character trait. It's something that you practice. It's something that you do. And it's important for us to put into place systems and processes and practices that allow us to be creative. And whether that means, you know, making sure that you're taking enough time off so that you can maintain your energy. That might mean, you know, putting in some kind of a project management system that helps you, you know, not constantly be thinking about, you know, everything that you have to do all at the same time. There's lots of ways you can practice that, but it's all about creating an actual practice of creativity and not just expecting it to happen. So those really resonate with me, and hopefully they resonate. At least one of them will resonate well with people on the team.
Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of like, I've talked about, you know, our sun, our purpose, our commitments, the things we're growing, and the culture and the roots, or the soil and the roots being the culture and the core values. And then I want to switch gears and talk about kind of the other part of it that I think is really, really important and that people don't talk about as much, which is the money part of it. So in this metaphor, I think of the money as being the nutrients in the soil, because they are the things that are necessary to sustain life in the garden. So I think a lot of people think that money is in conflict with values, and I don't think that's true at all, or it doesn't have to be true. It is true in some cases. But if you run your business so that it's not true, I think you have a healthier garden, I guess. So we talk about money very openly at Seamwork. So I started in 2019, end of 2018, beginning of 2019. We started practicing open book management. We'd kind of dabbled in it a little bit before, but I read this book called The Great Game of Business, which really opened my mind to the way businesses can be run as a very open and transparent entity, but also it's not just about being open and transparent. It's about being equitable, being fair, and giving people the information that they need to do their jobs well. And it's really, really, I think, made a huge difference in our company, at least from my perspective. We all go over the numbers every week. And not only do we go over the numbers, it's not just a matter of like me reporting the numbers to people, but people are responsible for different numbers and they report them to me each week. And we do a lot of forecasting together, and everybody knows kind of where the money's coming from. They know where it's going. They know where we're sitting at any given moment. And that's just, I think that's been really transformative in our decision-making processes. What do you think, Haley? What do you think about the change? Because you've been here since before we practice open book management and then after. So I'm really curious about what you think.
I think at first it was really overwhelming because I was like, oh man, like Sari and Ken want me to like be responsible for this like line item and not just like give Ken my receipts when I spend money. So like, it was scary at first, but I think it's been really cool because it's given everybody the opportunity and the vocabulary to talk about money and the decisions that we make around money, and see what those choices that we make, how those choices we make every day impact the, the bottom line. And we do like profit sharing at Seamwork. And so that's something that like, obviously everybody is highly motivated to make sure that we're really making the best decisions for the financial health of Seamwork.
Yeah. In the great game of business, they call that a stake in the outcome. So it's about giving everybody a piece of the success, but also, I think it's about fairness and about equity. It's about giving everybody that, not just the motivation, but also, what they're due for contributing to the success of the organization as a whole. So it just makes sense. It makes sense to me. And I think, if we could do even more ownership, I would do it. There's a lot of hurdles when you're this small to do that, but I would definitely do that if we get to that point that we could. So I could talk about open book management all day. I'm a huge proponent of it. I think transparency has really been key to making better decisions for us, and also just having a more sane and rational work environment. And so that's the money part of it. And then, there's a couple other things we can think about when we talk about this garden. Like, I think some of them are pretty obvious, like ideas being the seeds that grow into the impacts that we're having. And then another one that I think is really important is the issues that come up. So there's always problems in any business. And so if you think about these as like the weeds and the pests in the garden, I really like that part of the metaphor, because you're always going to have them. They're always going to be there. You're never going to get rid of them. And you don't want to totally get rid of them, because they're just something that needs to be managed, not completely destroyed. Because if you try to completely destroy every weed and every pest in your garden, you're going to destroy the garden. It's going to be overkill. You just need to, instead of dumping a bunch of chemicals on your problems, or maybe in the business world, that would be dumping a ton of money on your problems.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you have to learn to manage them, to really look out for them, spot them, and to, come up with the best solution to whatever the individual problem is that you're facing, and get everybody involved in that, which I hope that we try to do.
Yeah. And also just like when you've identified issues, planting your ideas and your seeds around that issue. If I have like, a garden with a bunch of moles in it, I'm not going to like plant a bunch of stuff that I know moles love to eat, as an example.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. I think, kind of tailoring, that kind of goes back to the, working with the external factors, like all the things that can come up in a garden, and adjusting your own approach based on that.
Yeah, I think going over all of this with you today, it's kind of made me think of something. We talk about this a lot internally, is like kind of macro and micro. And if I can like circle back to the question you asked me in the beginning of the episode, I think that at Seamwork, I have like a really good macro idea of what's going on with the business, what's going on with the company in general. And so all of those micro decisions that have come up, I feel completely prepared to handle on my own. I don't feel like I ever have to like run to Sari and be like, Sari, save me. For the most part, I feel like very empowered to do my job. I know that Sari trusts me. I know my teammates trust me, and just to do it well. And it's kind of the rest of the company feels very much that way too. And it's kind of amazing what you can accomplish when there's that like foundation of like macro knowledge and trust built into a company, and you don't have, someone who's trying to micromanage every single decision that you make.
Yeah. That's funny. I was just reading about trust this morning and how important it is in leadership, because I think if you don't practice trust, it becomes kind of this vicious cycle of, people don't have, if you're not setting high expectations and trusting people, then they're not going to be able to fulfill your high expectations, and then you have less trust. And so if you can get into a more positive cycle of just trusting people to be able to, obviously you have to take some precautions. You can't trust everybody in the world, but the more you can trust, the more everybody learns, I think.
Yeah. And I think that we've had, been operating with these like really, very clear values and purpose and commitments for long enough that everyone's on the same page. There's no reason for me, everyone's invested. There's no reason for me not to trust people. It's been a very conscious decision that was like made, I feel like, to get everyone aligned so that we can have that level of trust with one another.
Yeah. And I think it attracts good people too, as evidenced by our team. I think people who want that kind of environment are attracted to it.
For sure.
So we've talked a lot about how great Seamwork is, which, that's honestly how I feel. I'm very passionate about it. So that's, if we're spending a little bit of time bragging today, I think that's okay. I think we have a lot to brag about. But I wanted to talk before we go about something that we've been working on in the last, I don't know, how long would you say, Haley, like 6 months, 9 months, something like that?
Something like that.
We've been on our journey to become a B Corp. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what that is, in case you don't know. So a B Corp is something, it's a certification process that's put on by an organization called B Lab. It's a global certification. So companies all over the world have this certification. And companies like Patagonia, companies like Ben & Jerry's, there's some really big companies, and then there's a lot of really, really small companies. There's a great community here in Portland of B Corps as well. And it's a very, very rigorous certification process that basically looks at all of these commitment areas and a few other areas like the governance of your business and legal structures and things like that. And you basically take an assessment and you're given a score and figure out what you need to improve and what you can work on. And that's what we've been doing for the last, 6 months, 9 months, something like that. And when we started, you need a score of, I believe it's 80 to qualify. When we started, we were somewhere in the 60s, I want to say. And the last time I redid the assessment, we were at, I believe, 97 pre-certification. So this hasn't been verified by the organization yet. So that score could change. But The next step, now that we have qualified, is to go through the actual certification process. So that's what we've just started. It's apparently they're with everything going on in the world, they're very, very backed up. So I anticipate it's actually going to take quite a long time to get through that certification process. It sounds like they said it could take up to 5 months to even really start it. So we'll see. But that's kind of what we've been doing. That's been our experience so far. And it has been, I think it's been a really, really cool experience. It's really given us a lot of frameworks for thinking about these things and implementing them in our business. So the things like we could adapt things that we already had, like Culture Club, to make sure that they were, we had the right processes to make some of these ideas happen. So I mentioned our impact report that we created and published. So having things like that are actual, structures within the business that commit you to doing these things and provide some accountability for doing these things has been really helpful, because it's hard to come up with all of these kinds of structures all on your own. So just going through the process, even if you don't certify, I think even just going through the process is really transformative and really helps you to structure your business in a way that benefits the community and benefits other people. Yeah. So I've been really excited about it and really happy with the whole thing. It's been a ton of work, but I think it's so worth it.
Yeah, totally. And just really to reveal to you your own blind spots as a company, to see oh, wow, I guess I really could do a lot better in this particular area. And
yeah. And, just to give an example, since the company was founded, I don't know, 12 years ago or whatever it's been, we've always, for example, given money. And we've done that in kind of, I would say, totally haphazard ways, but sometimes haphazard ways. So sometimes we've given, for a long time, we gave a percentage of profits, but we didn't have a great system around it. And then, we did some other things, and we've done one-off events and, fundraising events and things like that. But going through the whole B Corp process, really forced me to do more research and figure out how to create. We have something called the Seamwork Fund now, which is an actual fund that we donate a percentage of our profits to every quarter. And then we can use that fund to give to organizations that we want to partner with. And that's been, just knowing how to do that and how to frame that and make sure that it's done in the right way, and that we're involving other people in the decision making about where that money should go. And we're getting seam workers involved, we're getting employees involved, and just making sure that it's being done in the way that we really believe in, and that reflects our values. I think it's just been really cool.
I agree.
So so that's kind of where we're at now. I think that's really the next steps are just continue this B Corp journey and trying to make Seamwork even better.
Yeah, totally. Wow. We went on and on about how great Seamwork is. I'm not sorry. Usually we summarize at the end of an episode, but that would be a lot to summarize. So to summarize, Seamwork's a garden. Come play in our garden with us. The end. But seriously, if you liked this episode, please, please, please leave us a review. It lets us know that you like the work that we're doing, and it also helps other people who are interested in things like sewing or seamwork to find us. So go ahead and leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
All right. We'll see you guys later. See you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.